Record-breaking temperatures are right around the corner. The days of triple-digit heat ahead.
Then Microsoft wants to build a new data center in North Carolina. They say this site won't put the typical strain on the environment, but clean water advocates are skeptical. What we learned from their meeting with the community today. And we're as close to a state budget as we've been in more than a year. Lawmakers lay out their proposal over more than 1,300 pages. What's included and what's next for the long overdue spending plan?
All right, let's dive into this. Lots going on. We got Microsoft facing some questions about a new data center, a full week of dangerous heat to talk about, and the state suing the Trump administration.
We want you to be part of the show tonight, 7 p.m. at WRAL.com is our email address. Send us an email. Share your thoughts with us. Send us your questions. We want to hear from you.
First up, let's talk about this weather and the dangerous heat. Starting tomorrow, the heat index will be at least 100 degrees for several days straight. Kat, the timing of this is also tough with the holiday coming up.
The worst of the heat is actually going to come on July 4th itself, on Saturday. Tomorrow we climb into the mid to upper 90s, not quite to record highs tomorrow or Thursday, but it's hot. 100 degrees Thursday, 102 on Friday. That would break the previous record of 101. Saturday, 103, the peak of the heat, also breaking a record high of 101. The heat dome right now is just west of us, and it's centered right in here where you see the excessive heat warning in pink, heat advisories in orange. We will start to see that heat dome shift to the east tomorrow. It is right overhead Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and that's going to be the worst of the heat. But what's new today is we have growing confidence that we will see some relief as the heat dome shifts next week. We're going to talk more about when coming up.
Forward to that. Thank you, Kat. So many places have told data center developers to stay away for now. But in Person County, they're getting ready to welcome Microsoft and the company's giant facility there. WRAL's Eric Miller joins us live tonight. This after the tech giant, Eric, has shared some new details now about this project.
Dan, the goal of this community meeting was really answering questions from this community and trying to smooth out some concerns. It's just wrapping up in the last few minutes here in this building on Piedmont Community College's campus. Now, we're outside because we were asked to step outside by some Microsoft representatives. They say the reason for that is they want to keep what's happening inside those doors focused on this community. And members of this community, they had a lot of questions about what's going on. We heard everything from concerns about energy and water usage to the possibility of jobs here, and some people wanting to know what this massive company is going to do for this rural area. A lot of the questions were coming for a very similar reason.
Listening to the community chatter over the last year, there hasn't been any information available, so I think people were eager to get more information.
My biggest concerns are the environmental impacts, the water usage.
Microsoft has been very generous in helping the communities that they're located in.
You can certainly hear there are a range of opinions on this project and what it means for this community. Now, just in the last couple of minutes, we did get a statement from Microsoft, and I do want to read some of this off here. The statement from a spokesperson saying in part that Microsoft is committed to responsible development in Person County and to being a thoughtful long-term partner. We're grateful for opportunities like tonight to engage with residents. We should also say that Microsoft has put out some information on this data center online, a number of documents that outline how they're trying to soothe some of the concerns from members of this community, including how they say they plan to use recycled water to cut down on water usage and plan to take steps to limit the impact on residents' power bills in this area. Still, a lot of folks we heard from tonight, they're skeptical and really want to see how this plays out.
Hey, a couple quick questions. The first one is something you said earlier about Microsoft asking you to leave. Were they asking you to leave just while you do this live shot, or were they asking you to leave and not be able to witness kind of what's going on inside?
Well, Dan, they had asked us to step out earlier before the live shot. Most of what we were doing here this evening was talking with residents outside and getting their perspectives once they had left the meeting, since, again, we were asked to step outside here.
Got it. Okay. And just, talking about the people, in that community, if so many of them are against a data center, why did Person County approve this? And we are hearing from so many counties and cities that are holding off on these decisions, kind of waiting, I guess, to see what places like Person County experience during this process. Why have they decided to be the case study of sorts for our area?
Well, Dan, there are a number of reasons, but among them is just how big an investment this is for Person County. This is a lot of money that would be coming in, a lot of new investment, and a major boost to the tax base in this area. We talked to one gentleman here this evening. You know, he's not a member of the Board of Commissioners or of Person County leadership, but he said for him, that's one reason that he is really behind this project. He wants to see more money coming into this community. He doesn't really care how it's coming in.
All right, interesting. I do think they should let you back in, though. I mean, if it's about the community and speaking to people in the community, it's not like everybody has the opportunity to be there tonight. That's why the news shows up. All right, Eric, got me fired up. Thanks, Eric. Appreciate it. So we've had so many people email us about this, asking about what the benefits are of the data centers, what those can be. We've talked a lot about the negatives, but we do want to talk about some of the things that can be beneficial to communities as well, because there are some positives to talk about. And the big one, obviously, is money. Data centers do generate a lot of that stuff. So let's look at the self-proclaimed data center capital of the world, and that's in Loudoun County, Virginia. Data centers there provide more than 12,000 jobs. In 2020, Loudoun County collected $400 million in tax revenue from data centers. This year, they're projected to generate over $1 billion. But that money isn't coming from 1 or 2 or even 10 data centers. Loudoun County has 200 data centers. 200. Each one of them is a yellow dot that you see on the map there in the county. Each one of those dots is a data center. They've been building them for a while, since about 2010. These data centers generate lots of money, hundreds of millions of dollars going back to the Loudoun County government every single year. But I guess the question we had was, does any of that money actually go back to the people? What I mean is, if the county is getting $1 billion from the data centers, are they able to lower things like property tax rates, take a bit of the burden off of their citizens that so many of us in this area are feeling right now? And the answer is yes. Loudoun County still has a pretty high property tax rate, like 55% higher than what we pay in Wake County. But ever since 2010, ever since they started building all those data centers, their property tax rate has come down. Just this year, Loudoun County got rid of the personal property tax rate on vehicles, which is substantial. And they say data centers are the reason that they can afford to do things like that. So that's pretty positive when you're looking at dollars and cents. And when you weigh that against the negatives, the noise, the water use, the power bills, the rest of it, there's another question. Is it worth it? Tell me what you think. Send us an email, 7 p.m. at WRAL.com. Are you okay with data centers, or are you against them? Does the bad outweigh the good? Which part of this topic should the news be focusing on? What do you want to learn more about? Tell us what's on your mind, and we'll talk about it right here at 7 o'clock.
Well, let's get you caught up. Here are 5 things you should know right now. Jury selection not wrapped up in a high-profile murder case. Attorneys have spent 2 days picking jurors in the case against Darius Tyson. He's the man accused of killing Sean Burton in Durham. Burton's been missing for years. A body was never found. Prosecutors say there is enough evidence to garner a murder case. New details about a takeover at a North Carolina jail. The SBI shared this photo showing the damage inside Bertie Martin Regional Detention Center. Agents are reviewing surveillance video and interviewing witnesses to figure out how the inmates got control of the facility. 2 corrections officers were held hostage there.
New today, North Carolina's drought is not improving despite recent rain. Our water reservoirs are very low. Falls Lake got nearly 2 inches of rain in the last week, but the water supply remains the same at 64%. Falls Lake is Wake County's largest drinking water source. The State House approved a bill that would remove taxes on certain products like diapers, baby wipes, and tampons. Taxes on those products generate an estimated $50 million for the state. The bill's sponsor, though, wants to lift the burden on women and families. It still needs support from the Senate now before going to the governor's desk. RTP could get a shakeup. The people that oversee the area approved new standards, clearing the way for mixed use and residential projects in the future. That's never been allowed in RTP's lengthy history. The board in charge there says it gives the site more flexibility for the future.
You really can't overstate the consequences for how dire this could be. That's your quote of the day, coming from North Carolina Attorney General Jeff Jackson. He's talking about a new lawsuit he filed alongside a bunch of other AGs across the country. And it sounds pretty serious, right? This one deals with work requirements for Medicaid. Last year, Congress passed the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, and one of the many things it does is require people on Medicaid to work at least 80 hours a month unless they have an exemption, unless they are too sick to work. And that's where the lawsuit comes in. Jackson is suing CMS, the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services within the Trump administration. They're the group that actually provides the health coverage through Medicaid. CMS wants people to prove they are too sick to work. At face value, it sounds reasonable, right? We see this a lot in our day-to-day lives. To get just about any government service, we have to prove we live where we say we live, or that we have certain needs that make us eligible. So what makes this different?
Creates a new test that sets a higher bar. But at the same time, it doesn't really say exactly how you clear that bar. So what we would have to do as a state to comply with that is create a whole new bureaucracy. You're talking about a lot more paperwork, more tests, more evaluations, more trip to the doctor, and a lot more work for doctors to do.
A new test, a higher bar, more red tape. It sounds annoying. But in this case, is it illegal, like Jackson says it is? The One Big Beautiful Bill Act says people on Medicaid have to work, but it created exemptions, including for people considered medically frail. We're talking about cancer patients, people with serious disabilities or severe mental illnesses. If they're too sick, they don't have to work. But how that gets proven, the law doesn't say. But still, CMS wants proof. How do you prove that? Well, it's unclear. CMS is leaving it to every state to figure out its own process. And that's the problem Jackson and all the other AGs have with this. The law that Congress passed doesn't call for proof. And they argue proving that someone is too sick to work could be so cumbersome that it delays the care they need or disqualifies them from Medicaid. But checks are important, right? I mean, Medicaid is so expensive. It's one of the biggest line items in the government budget. For something like that, there should probably be some clear rules. Clarity. Maybe that's the issue. The lack of clarity here. A lack of clarity opens the door to fraud, the very thing the One Big Beautiful Bill is trying to snuff out. So, who's right? That's up to the judge to decide. Jackson tells me a ruling on the AG's request for a preliminary injunction could come in a matter of weeks. In the meantime, every state, including North Carolina, will have to get to work to figure out what their version of proof might be.
We have our first look now at the state budget proposal. It gives the timeline for those teacher raises and bonuses meant to make up for the delay we've seen. It's the biggest budget in state history, but it actually makes government smaller. We're going to explain how that all works next. We got our first look at the state budget proposal today. It gives it's more than 1,000 pages long, so we're leafing through it page by page. It's the biggest budget North Carolina has ever seen, $34 billion. A vote is expected to come this week. We're looking at raises for teachers, raises for state employees. The raises are overdue, a year overdue right now, so the budget would give them all a bonus in October. Public safety workers would see their pay go up, getting some of the largest raises included in this budget. A lot to dive into here. So we have WRAL State Government reporter Will Doran live at the legislature right now. So Will, again, it's the biggest budget ever, but oddly, it shrinks the size of government. So give us an idea of how those two play out in tandem.
Yeah, Dan, this budget cuts over 1,000 jobs in state government. And what Republican legislative leaders are telling us is that this is about shrinking, fighting the bureaucracy, while also freeing up some of that state spending to focus on other priorities. State Senate Leader Phil Berger tells us today that this is a responsible spending plan that takes aim at bureaucratic bloat without endangering core services. And it's really just simple math here. I mean, you take 1,000 jobs, you multiply that by tens of thousands of dollars for each of their salaries. That gives you tens of millions of dollars to free up that you can spend on whatever else you want, tax cuts, road paving, anything.
So if people hear that, they hear we're cutting, 1,000 jobs. Does that mean like mass layoffs? Where are those jobs coming from?
No, and that is a key point here. Just because this budget cuts 1,000, 1,100 jobs doesn't mean that 1,100 people are going to get laid off. Obviously, we've reported for years about vacancies in state government. And what lawmakers are telling me today is that these cuts really target jobs that have been vacant, usually for a year plus. So it just takes those off of the books permanently. We have a breakdown of some of the numbers. Prisons and the health department are the most affected by this, but by freeing up some of those salaries from those agencies, lawmakers are actually able to create new jobs in other agencies. One of the biggest winners you can see here is actually the Cultural Resources Department, which can now hire over 70 new people. Most of those are going to be at the North Carolina Zoo in Asheboro. Its brand new Asia exhibit hasn't been able to open because of this year-long budget standoff. They haven't been able to hire those people. So now this huge multi-million-dollar expansion of the zoo is finally going to happen because we are, looks like, going to have a budget very soon. So great news in the budget here for fans of the zoo in Asheboro.
So, give me an idea. Look, we have a lot of state employees, so you're not just going to get one message, but are you getting a pulse on what employees are thinking or saying about all of this now that it's finally happening?
Well, there's a group here that represents state employees, the State Employees Association. They are not a big fan of this budget, and particularly the job cuts. They say that when you eliminate jobs, even though they're vacant, what that means is the state can never really get back to full staffing levels. And already, all across state government, we see people working overtime. We see people doing multiple jobs, and it just kind of makes that reality permanent by doing this. And while this does actually help the state pay for raises for state workers, these groups also say that those raises really aren't enough. A lot of people are only going to get 3%, which of course is below the rate of inflation.
Right, especially after the delay and everything else. All right, we appreciate the reporting. I know you got more to do, so we'll stay in touch on this one. Thank you, Will.
Thanks.
All right, over here in the Weather Center, Kat, a lot of people making their plans to do a little indoor-outdoor combination for the 4th.
Yes, I'm going to be one of those people, heavy on the indoor there.
Right.
But, it'll be a holiday weekend. People want to get outside, take care of yourself, make sure that you are drinking lots of water and staying in the shade. High temperatures are in the triple digits Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. The heat index between 105 and 110 those days. And it's not just a couple of hot days. We're talking about a full-on heat wave. Starting tomorrow, highs reach the mid-90s. And then Thursday, 100, 102, 103, 101. Monday, we may finally be out of the triple digits, but it is still going to feel like the triple digits out. And by Tuesday of next week, we finally have some relief in sight. That is a whole week from today, though. So we pretty much have an entire week-long heat wave to get through first. And unfortunately, one of the reasons why this is dangerous is because there's not much relief from the heat at night. So those who don't have air conditioning, and not everyone does, it's really tough to cool off your body overnight when the lows only dip into the upper 70s like they will this weekend. So we are certainly, hoping that everybody is able to utilize the cooling shelters that will likely open this weekend across our area. If you're headed to the beach this weekend, that will be a good way to cool down. Temperatures are going to be in the upper 80s to low 90s, though as you head inland off the sand, those numbers very quickly climb into the mid-90s. 96 in Newbern will be in the mid-90s in Wilmington, but Wrightsville Beach is at 90. So just to give some perspective there, it is a small window right along the shore where temperatures will stay out of the mid to upper 90s. Carolina Beach looking nice right now. It was packed earlier. Of course, a lot of people having dinner right now. Today, there was a high risk for rip currents along the northern Outer Banks and a moderate risk for rip currents for some of our east-facing beaches. I do want to remind you, ahead of the holiday weekend, there are always several rip current rescues. I mean, there are holiday weekends where one beach will have 50 to 100 rip current rescues. So this is something that we also want you to be aware of. Make sure to escape a rip current, you are not trying to swim back to the shore, but you are swimming parallel to the shore and out of the rip current before you head back to shore. A live look at downtown Raleigh. It's a beautiful day. A Natural Sciences Museum view here. Looking good. 89 degrees at the moment. Our high today reached 90 degrees. We jump up tomorrow and then we just keep going up from there. By the time we get to Sunday, temperatures slowly, very, very slowly start to back off. But by Tuesday of next week, we will all be ready for 93 degrees. And that will come with increasing rain chances, and we are definitely going to need that by the time we get to next week, too.
Comfy 93.
Yes,
it's
right?
It's going to be good.
One last thing is coming up, a desperate rescue mission in another continent powered by a canine from the Triangle. That's next. One last thing tonight, a local canine answering the call of duty in another country. Canine Joey is in Venezuela helping with recovery efforts after 2 powerful earthquakes.
The quakes, of course, were devastating, with about 1,500 people killed, many more injured, many more missing. Here are some of the photos that are just remarkable. This is Joey navigating, in some cases, through the rubble. Look at the work that this dog does. You can see some of the tight spaces that he's able to get in and maneuver around. Joey's no stranger to this sort of work. We first introduced you to him in Western North Carolina in the aftermath of Helene, helping to locate bodies there and bring closure to some of the families in that area. But as if we need another reason to love those animals.
I know. The work that these guys do, what we saw them do after Helene was just remarkable. And I'm glad that they're over in Venezuela.
And in many cases, they've been able to find people days after the quake alive in the rubble, rescuing them, families, children, and those dogs are at the center of a lot of that wonderful work.
Hey, we tackled a lot of things today. Data centers, Medicaid.
Yeah.
Please do send us an email 7 p.m. at WRAL.com. Thanks to everybody who already has.
Have a great night. We'll see you tomorrow.